Hey folks, so it is time. We're going to start another series of videos on a collaboration. This one I'm super excited about. Again, I've got some ideas. It's been kind of percolating in my brain for the last couple weeks. I've got some ideas on this one. And I'm hoping it comes out like I see it in my head. When I was at 4Ds a few months ago over in LA, I met just a ton of really great people. One of the people I met is the CEO of the Sasha Group, who runs the 4Ds. James Orsini is his name, and he reached out to me and wanted me to make him a sign. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So here is their logo, which is pretty simple, but I'm going to do some elements on here that is like I've never done before. So I'm really excited about, again, how this thing could possibly come out. I'm going to use some different material. Well, actually, I'm going to use some white poplar. Well, you guys have seen me use white poplar before, and I've got an opportunity for some slabs that I got from my buddy over in Las Vegas, Andrew, over at Reclaim Secrets, and picked up some white poplar over there. So I'm going to do some special stuff on that. So stay with us and we'll get into, gosh, I just stumbled over that. Stay with us and we'll get into the board prep in just a minute. All right, so here are those two pieces of white poplar that are book matched. And I am going to cut these up for my overall final size, somewhere around 24 by 42. So I've got those black marks at about 48 inches. I'm always going to cut it bigger both ways. So I'm going to cut those off at about 48, and I think this book match piece is going to be really, really cool when I get it all put together. So what I have to do is square it up at the ends and then down the sides. Now, the narrowest part up there at the top is I think is about 16 inches, but I need to end up with about 12 and 12, so I got plenty to play with to take off that live edge. Anyway, so and then once I get those cut to size, then I got to surface them down because they're I'm probably going to have to run them through my router sled to get them flat, so that I've got a good, everything's good and milled up and squared. So that is where we're at on the Sasha Group sign. And once I get these cut to size and squared up a little bit, then we'll come back and we'll move on. Hey guys, all right, so we're moving on with these book matched white poplar boards for our Sasha sign. So I want to explain to you a little bit about what I did. So these are the end cuts off of my big boards. I cut my big boards to 48 inch, and these, again, remembering 42 is going to be my final size. So I cut these off first using my circular saw. Actually a really good saw. I really like this rigid circular saw. It's not cordless, but I didn't need it to be cordless. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. But one thing that Vicki and I learned the very hard way is that when you've got slabs like this and they aren't completely dry, which almost never they are when we get them, if you don't seal them up, especially the end cuts, then you could have warping if you live in a place as hot as we live in. I'll just say that. We have a plastic shed actually that we store a lot of these slabs in, and we went out there after a month or so and these things were twisted and split open and everything. So we got a recommendation from a friend of ours of this anchor seal. This stuff is, it looks like if you added some sausage, it would look like sausage gravy, but it's really thick. It's actually, it says it's an emulsion wax hybrid. So this stuff is made that when you got a fresh cut put this stuff on there, and it'll keep it, hopefully keep it from checking, and even more importantly, warping. So here's what I did. Every time I make a new cut, well, number one, when I got these boards back, you guys saw when I got 4 of these slabs back that were 6 foot long, on the ends I put some of this stuff. Again, I just use a brush. It's water cleanup. You just use a brush and really soak in the end cuts. That's where you really need to protect it. And then on the other surfaces, I just used my regular sanding sealer with my Critter. With this, it's so thick, I probably could have sprayed it with my Critter, but I decided to just dab it on with a brush. And so when I cut these off, the one end already had this stuff on it from before, but when I've got a new end, I went ahead and put the anchor seal on both ends now. And these book match pieces, I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I know I'm going to use them eventually. Anyway, they're book matched out of the same log. And anyway, so I'm going to set these aside and save them for a future project, but I know they're all sealed up now, so I shouldn't have much problem with warpage or cupping or splitting, hopefully. So these are my 2 pieces back here, again cut to 4 foot. Again, I did seal up the new cut end, and then I sealed up the edge as well. So these again are the pieces that came off of there. So let me move these out of the way. This is basically the way it will end up. So what I've got is I've got a fairly square edge, not really square, but cut large. So I'm going to use 12 inches of this and 12 inches of that. And then when I'm going to flatten these out, that's going to be my next step, is set up with my my router sled, flatten these out so it'll give me a nice flat surface, so then I can run this edge through the jointer. At least that's my plan. Guys, I'm not really a professional at this part. I'm kind of working my way through it, but my theory is, because these aren't really flat surfaces yet. Once I flatten these out, then I'm going to get me a good edge here using the jointer for a good lamination, and then I will run these through the table saw at 12 inches, and it should give me my final size. I might go a little bit wider than 12 to give me a little room for error, but that's kind of my my idea. You can see that these definitely are book matched. You can see this grain through here. I don't know if the bench is in the way. This grain through here, and these knots. So I'm really excited about putting this board together. I've never done anything really book matched, and I want this Sasha sign to be something super special, and I've got some big plans, really different plans from a carving standpoint. So anyway, guys, when we come back, we'll have the router sled. I'll show you a little bit about that. I won't do a whole lot because we've done videos before on that, and I don't want to take a whole bunch of time on the board prep. But I do want to show you kind of what my thinking is on it. So anyway, we'll be back, and we'll get some flattening done. Sound? Yes. Okay, just checking. Thought I'd make sure we had sound before we move on. All right, guys, one thing I didn't say on the last scene. The way I made these long, straight cuts is I got one of these little clamp guides from Harbor Freight, and to be honest, I'm pretty impressed with it for being a little cheapy. I put the line where I wanted it and kind of took my measurements and just used that for using my little circular saw for cutting that long edge. It's not a perfect edge like it's a Festool thing or something, but it's going to work for me. So, all right, so now we've got our sled set up. This is a little bit tricky because my sled's 4 foot long and my piece is 4 foot long. I wish I had a little bit more room. I've got my my big 2-inch flattening bit in there right now. And you guys know I always run my router at full speed, but not in this instance. This bit being a 1/2-inch shank, taking 2-inch swath at a time, it says to run it at about 18 to 20, and that's about what I got it set at. So I have got, oh, the other thing is that you have to make sure your board is completely stable and not rocking at all. So if you look over here, you can see I've just got a couple pieces of 1/8 inch birch underneath there where I had a gap, and that makes it nice and solid so it's not rocking at all. Then when I get this surface down flat, when I flip it over, it'll be perfectly flat to do the other side. So I'm going to take just a few passes. I'm also going to put across the screen right here, I'm going to put what videos to go watch to really watch a lot of router sled stuff that I've done and Vicky's done. And again, this router sled, it's not, you just have to take your time, make sure you've got all your ducks in a row, so to speak. And there's tons of videos out on YouTube showing how to do this. All right, so let's make a couple swipes here. Make sure I'm clear. Yeah, I love the smell of that white poplar. All right, so guys, you can see I'm just taking a little bit at a time. I'm not trying to rush this and take too much all in one shot, even though I'm using my big 618 router. I just don't want to, I want to take my time on this thing. If I have to go 3 or 4 times end to end, I just don't want to rush it and try and take too much at one time. So I'm going to, so what I'll do now is I'll finish it up at this depth. I'll come back here and I'll take another, a little bit deeper cut at it until I get this thing all flat. Then, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then then I'll switch over to this board, do exactly the same thing. Once I get those done, we'll off camera, when we come back, then I will worry about my square edge there. Get that edge square, and then I can run it through the table saw and rip my 2 12.5 13-inch pieces to give me my close to final size. So we'll be back. Hey folks, I hadn't planned on doing this, but it just came to mind. I just kind of figured something out that I wanted to share with you guys. I got that one all done, so I'm on the second one right now, on the first side of the second one. And so what I discovered is, by the time I got down, let me see if I can roll down here a little bit. By the time I got down to this end, you can see that's where I'm at right now. I normally wouldn't have stopped mid-cut like that, but I wanted to really share this. By the time I got down to that end, because I didn't have the slab actually attached to the sled itself, it was trying to slide on me as I was pushing the router. I'm filming this by myself, so as I was pushing the router this way, let me see if that's coming through. This thing was wanting to slide on me. So what I did was I just cut some little MDF blocks, used my Star Bond and masking tape trick for a temporary hold, and man, that thing is just solid as a rock. It's not going anywhere. So I put a couple blocks. Let me see if I can get over there. Yeah, there's a block over there, and then there's one over, gosh, where's it at? Where am I at? Man, I hate filming by myself. There's a block there, and then I've got 3 on this side. Let me move this out of the way. Yeah, I've got 3 of them actually down this side because I'm pushing the router. I'm basically pushing the router that direction. So this is the side that I needed stability on. Anyway, it's working really, really good, and it's definitely a great way to keep that slab from moving on you. You know, I've seen different ways to do it. You could hot glue it down, a lot of different ways to do it, but I could pick that slab up if I wanted to, but it's not going to slide. It's not going to slide this direction, which is the way my router is moving. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you. I hadn't planned on it, but I wanted to share that with you just in case you guys need a temporary hold on something using the Star Bond. And actually, so you know, let me see. Yeah, I used the, hang on. So I used the Star Bond thick and then the accelerator. I put the Star Bond on one piece of masking tape and sprayed the other with accelerator, and then I stuck them together. And it just works like a charm. Really great way to, you know, the more I use this Star Bond stuff, the more uses I find for it. Anyway, so I just thought I'd pass that on. Hope it helps. So I'm going to finish this up, and then we'll come back, and both of these pieces will be done as far as flat, and then we'll cut them to size. All right, guys and gals, here's where we are. So I got these boards pretty much milled down. I still got to cut them to size, but what I've done is I've jointed that middle seam. I've got that thing pretty much lined out, used the joiner. I think it's going to make a nice seam. And then what I had to do is, this is again something different for me. I needed to make sure that that book match grain kind of lined up. So I had to kind of line that up. And now I've got to trim them to length. And so I think that's about where it's going to be. And I'm just basing that really off of that grain right there. The way those two kind of come together at the top there and go down, that looks like a pretty good match to me. So when I lined that up, then I used my T-square, which I hardly ever use because it's just never thought I'd really have much of a use for it, but I use the T-square because the outside edges are pretty square, and then I marked my 42 inches at both ends. Now I'll take them over to the chop saw, and I will cut those to length, and then I've got about 2 or 3 inches off of this outside edge here and that outside edge there to give me my full 24. So I'll rip these both at 12. So then we'll have the boards pretty much set the way I want them, and we'll glue them up. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. That's where I'm at. All right, folks, it's time to glue these two pieces together. Now, you guys know most of the time when I put big boards together, I like 2x4s and 2x6s. That just wasn't an option here. I really didn't want to rip these down and have that many seams. So I've got two pieces 12-inch. Now, one thing that from the last scene that you saw, one thing I realized is my seam down the center, man, I just have such a tough time using that jointer and getting a really good flat edge, and even swapping the way I was joining and everything, it still didn't work as good as I liked. So I just ran it through the table saw and ended up with a really nice seam. I ended up with a better seam through my table saw than I did running it through the jointer. Anyway, one of these days I'm going to have to take a lesson on how to use a jointer because I stink at it. Anywho, so we've got our pieces cut to size and everything. I'm trying to think and do this all at the same time, which is a recipe for disaster for me. I normally can't think. Now you'll see that these edges here, you can't really see too well there, but they're kind of fuzzed up a little bit because of the grain, but still makes a really nice seam. So I'm using Titebond 2. I'm sure I'm forgetting something here, but anyway, I'm using Titebond 2. Yeah, that's what I forgot. I forgot my little brush to move the glue.
You don't have one in the drawer?
No, I don't think I do. You know where they are in there, baby?
I just saw one here.
I like those little glue spreaders just to make sure that everything gets spread evenly all the way around. My glue is a little stiff here.
Right, where are they?
Top, top shelf, in the glue bin. Find it?
Yeah.
That a girl. Thank you, babe. Yeah, this is the glue bot that my dad stole from me, and looks like that glue's been in there for a while because it's kind of stiff. I could have easily added some water to that. Anyway, so I'm just going to spread that glue around. You guys know my philosophy. I'd rather have too much glue than not enough. So I'm sure some of you out there are saying, no, he's using too much glue. And you're probably right. I probably am. But I do not like any gaps in there. Well, I did use a lot of glue. I think that's even a lot of glue for me. But it's not spreading really well because it's a little warm out here today. Not really that warm, but I think the glue itself, I should have checked it before I started filming because it's really thick. So I think it's needed some water to it to thin it out a little bit. But anyway, I think I've got a pretty good spread here. Make sure I'm covered everywhere. And then,
Big globules sliding down the side.
yeah, well, water will clean that up. That's the cool thing about this stuff is water cleans it up pretty fast. Now we'll see if I can do this without wearing a coat of glue. All right. I really try and I want my ends to not float on me too much. Well, actually, I don't want them to float on me at all. So I'm just going to cinch that down. Now I've got cauls. I'm going to put a caul down the center, but I've got these blocks all covered with packing tape. And you guys have seen me do this before, covered with packing tape so they don't stick to the blocks. The one thing that I would stress, guys, if you're going to do this, and those of you that do it very much, you know, I probably spent 45 minutes to an hour just prepping, just trying to think of every conceivable thing and just prepping this whole thing to make sure that I had everything set and ready to go. I'm probably still going to forget something, but... I think I'll be okay. Once I get this kind of to where it'll hold in place, I can come around that side. I could have used a piece of plywood that was a little bit not quite as wide, but I figured, yeah, we got to zoom on the camera. Why is that thing not gripping on me? There we go. There we go. So I got those all pretty much set. Now I'm going to squeeze this out. Those actually, wow, I think it actually is working. Go figure. So now I'm going to put, I've got clamps on the underside. Now I'm going to put 2 bar clamps on the top. These old pony clamps I've had for, gosh, I don't know, 35, 40 years. But they still work pretty good. I like the Bessie ones a little bit better, but you know, these are just old-fashioned clamps, but they still work pretty good. So now I've got a wet rag here. I'm just gonna Clean that up. It doesn't look like it's drifting on me. I've got zero drift. What I mean by drift is the pieces sliding end to end. Looks like because I put these call blocks in place, they're not drifting on me. All right, so here's what we're going to do, guys. That is about it for this video. When we come back, this will all be one piece, Lord willing, if everything works out the way I hope it does. And then I got to start filling these knots, because I want to get those all filled. So I'll probably use the Star Bond on that and do some fill. I'm not sure yet. I got to play around with. Maybe I'll use the Rangate gun. I still haven't decided yet. I wanted to get this done first. So anyway, that is it. I hope this was helpful to you guys. If you have any questions, as always, just let me know. Eric at makeawoodsign.com. We will move on the next video. With any luck at all, we'll get into carving on the next video. I'm hoping that we will. So thanks again, guys, for watching. If you have any questions, get to me. I'm on Instagram every day, Make a Wood Sign. Starting to post videos on Pinterest, so you can find me on there. And gosh, that's about it. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to subscribe. And when you do subscribe, click that little bell icon. Make sure you get notified when we do a new video, which is 4 times a week now. So we got lots more coming up. I'm really excited about moving on with this Sasha sign. So everybody have a great one, and we love you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.